Hello, Namaste. Welcome to the third episode of MD Speaks. In the first two episodes, we learned how BARSYL was founded and various anecdotes related to the founders. In this episode, we learn about the early years of BARSYL and how innovation came to define the company. Hello, Sunil.
Hi, nice to be back with you again.
Yeah, today we are going to discuss the early years and challenges that you faced, the first major projects that you took on.
Yeah. Okay. As last two sessions we've discussed the genesis. Yes, early days. One of the things which I would like to kind of emphasize again to both our internal people as well as external is that BARSYL always had DNA of innovation right from early days. Though while we today put it as a tagline that we innovate, but I think right from the founding days we had this DNA of innovation. Now, most of the time people confuse invention with innovation.
True.
So yes, we are not an inventing company, but we were an innovative company.
You also had to innovate because you had no other company doing this kind of work.
Exactly, that's right. So the innovation was, like you said, forced onto us because we had to make a place for ourselves, unknown, small entity. So how do we make ourselves visible? So we need to do innovative things. Very small little things made the difference or innovation. For example, I still remember, I think from day one, or especially most of when I joined in, and then we started to look at how to grow the business, we decided that we will not have drawing boards in the office. So, people couldn't imagine that an engineering office without drawing boards. Okay. We said, no, we will only use computers. Okay. None of us knew how to use a computer, but we said, no, we'll learn and we will only hire people who know how to do design or drawings on computers. And those days, I still remember, princely sum of 55,000, which was I think almost equivalent to 2 months of our turnover. Oh. we spent on buying a bulky computer and a printer, and consciously we decided.
That was quite visionary thinking.
Absolutely. So I would give credit again to the founders as such who had that vision, though I told them, but then they readily accepted. They also agreed that yes, we need to be innovative, and these small little things, so any drawing which goes out, the customer will also feel that it's not a hand-drawn kind of drawing. It is a computerized drawing, so they would be able to value our quality and our service. So that is where the DNA of innovation started off for us. And across as we grew projects, we always looked at doing innovative projects rather than looking at only, in terms of size. We never looked at projects from the value perspective or the commercial value. We looked at in terms of value, technical value, what it could teach us and what we could add value to the project. So innovation has always been a part of our thing. Early days, yes, like any other business, we had ups and downs, tough times, very little good times, I would say. Initial days were, yes, very tough and very challenging.
I mean, these days they talk about success and failure, and they say failure is a feedback, nothing but a feedback on how you should go forward.
See, so the way I look at it, I look at failure not as a setback. I look at it more as a detour. That every failure, you either overcome it or you learn from it. So that is how I looked at failure. I never let failure become a stumbling block to our, forward movement or forward growth, because failures will happen. And especially for a, small, so-called those days startup company like ours, failure was born because we never knew what the business was like, what was the industry. We again were innovative that we created a railway industry in that sense, because it was not that it was just people who were retired from there. So the other innovation we did, or rather I did, I would say I would take credit for that, is that I consciously took a decision that I would not depend on my resources for the Indian Railways. I never wanted to depend on retired people working for the organization. So consciously we decided that we will pick up young engineers, train them, because I had gone through training, so I knew that it is possible to train anybody as long as they are willing to and they are smart. So that is the other innovation we did.
So once you took over, you started a massive recruitment.
Not massive, we couldn't afford actually. So if 3 or 4 could be massive, yes. Yeah. But then we consciously decided.
For a startup it is, I think.
Yes. So we consciously decided that yes, we had senior people with us who were already founders. So that was good enough from the railway perspective that they had the knowledge. Now we said that yes. So what we created a concept was generals and foot soldiers. The generals would be the senior people who would guide them, but the foot soldiers were the one who were fighting the battle. So they would be out on the field and learn. The other thing was we were nobody then, so we couldn't afford to hire graduates from well-known engineering colleges. So we initially struggled, but then we realized that no point chasing them. We actually found that diploma holders were much more committed. So we actually recruited in the initial almost first 10 years consciously we recruited only diploma holders and gave them better salaries
And
than
more of them, because normally everybody wants to be generals and nobody wants to be foot soldiers.
True. So fortunately, like I said, we were lucky, I would say, that we got very enthusiastic set of youngsters who were, one thing, like I said, is diploma holders are not very well taken care of. Most of them are either working on the shop floor or the field. So here we gave them a good place to work in an office, executive level working, and we paid slightly more than what they would otherwise have got, but much lower than what a degree holder was expecting. So it was a win-win for both of us. So that was also an innovative step. And like I said, we produced very good people, and some of them, of course, still 30, 40 years later, they're still in touch with us. So we also find very nice. So these kind of innovations has always been happening. So that is something which, like I said, it's imbibed into us as such. So that is what I expect, that yes, people should look at that and try to do things differently rather than looking at it as a roadblock or as a problem. Problems will happen in life, problems happen in any business. But then the way you look at it, the way you approach, and the way you kind of come up with out-of-the-box thinking.
So what you're essentially saying is, instead of taking engineers, you took diploma holders to begin with.
Yes, exactly.
And they grew with the company.
They grew because we had confidence on the quality of our training. That is some confidence we had that, yes, since, like I said, in fact, one of the first non-founding employees which we hired was actually a principal from a railway training school, because I needed to be trained. So I was the first student for him. But
I think you mentioned.
Yes. So when I found that very useful for me, I realized that this could be replicated.
Training is an important part.
This could be replicated to others also. And thankfully, yes, Mr. Prabhakar Rao was the teacher there. He was also very committed to teaching, and he put in his best effort to actually train the youngsters who were very raw. Quite. In fact, I still remember a couple of them had never even sat in a train. They were always traveling in a bus, so they didn't even know what a train looked like. So they would be taken out, they would be taken to various sites, looked at how the trains work. So those kind of things, it was a mix of both theoretical as well as practical or site visit, which was an ongoing thing. They would also work on projects. So that we were able to produce a very strong kind of foot soldier kind of people who were, yes, committed and willing to go out on the field, take guidance from seniors. So that, I think that was where our founding, early days. So that was a struggle, like I said.
So this training continues till today?
Training is today also. Training continues to be a major part of our, I would say, philosophy, because we believe that, yes, people who are, in the consulting field need to be knowledgeable. Because knowledge is what we pass on to our customers, clients.
True.
So unless they are up to mark, they are not trained properly, you can't expect to satisfy a client, or you can't expect to deliver quality. So even today, on a regular basis, yes, today, of course, people who join us have the good fortune of, colleges, they would be learning something about railway technology, they have railway engineering, or they would have worked somewhere else. So we don't really start from basic, though even that, where we take in pure trainees from freshers from engineering college, we still give them that basic railway training, and then they get on the job.
Mr. Prabhakar Rao was with you for some considerable
quite some time. In fact, he virtually, we had to kind of force him into retirement because till almost, I think, till he was about close to 80 plus. He would barely walk with a cane stick, but yes, your driver would get him and be in the seat. So yes, he wouldn't move around much because, again, in the office you had those slippery floors. So we also avoided him to move around, but we would go to him, and he was still there. So yes, till almost, I think, 3 years till before he passed away, he was a part of our, gradually he became more of a guru or a mentor kind of thing. But then he also developed substantial strength in other people to become trainers. So that is something which
the reason I asked this question was the training was an important part of BARSYL's growth.
Yeah, because consciously we took a decision that as if we need to grow, we can't depend on somebody else's resources to become our resources. We can't depend on Indian Railways to feed our resources. We can't plan. So we need to do something different. We need to create our own people. And that is the only, because otherwise every time I would need to look around for a retired railway officer or railway staff to come and join. Because again, we could not offer such good salaries that they would be able to leave the railways. So everybody would only wait for retirement, and when they were pensionable, they would join us. So we can't, and that also had a limitation that, with age, they would be, they wouldn't be as frequent travel, they wouldn't be going to site. So that's why that is a conscious decision we took, that since we are in this business, we decided to continue with this business, then we need to create our own resources. So that concept continues. I think till very recently, I think we were the only kind of company in the industry which recruited fresh students, not necessarily experienced, trained them, and then kind of grew them into the organization. So in fact, that also becomes a good sort of activity of pride for us, because we can happily say that, in fact, I'm very proud to say that at least about 200 of our people would be in all over the world in any railway company or the other. So we feel very nice. I think there's barely any railway-related company in the world where one of our staff members would not be there.
That's creditable.
So that is something we feel very nice about, because a lot of times there was this debate, whether we should spend so much on training when we are not able to retain people or things like that. But then we collectively took a decision that retain, yes, if we are not able to keep them happy because of our limitations in terms of salary, fine, they deserve to go and grow. But then at least we've done something good for the industry. We've created people, which normally is very difficult. People talk about resource shortage, but nobody really walks the talk.
Yeah.
But that is something which we continue to do. And today also a lot of time people say that, why do we train people when you know that 3 to 5 years? Yeah, 3 to 5 years.
But that's a problem that most industries face.
Absolutely. But here it's peculiar because in other industries, at least, the raw material is slightly trained. Because colleges today, for example, IT colleges today train on computer science, computer technology, fair amount of basic training. Whereas here, there is absolutely no level of basic training available in a college. So we need to start from fundamentals. Correct. And like I said, yes, but then we feel that, yes, being one of the pioneers in the industry, it's our sort of give back to the industry, that we are at least able to create resources, create opportunities for youngsters to come into a new sector. Because normally, again, when people say railway, they think it's only Indian Railways which is a job. They don't think, they can't imagine, there could be other opportunities in the railway sector. So that is also what we feel nice, that we've been able to create that opportunity in youngsters. That yes, you have this opportunity, not necessarily working through the UPSC exam or whatever it is. You can actually become a railway professional and grow, make your career.
So this vision of crossing borders and looking at other countries where you could consult, when did that happen?
That is also innovation again. I didn't have a pension, so I had to look for my growth. And I realized that at those days, this was maybe mid-90s, the industry was fairly small. So opportunities, you wouldn't get big ticket jobs because there's hardly anything. So if we needed to even pay decent salaries for staff and ourselves, we needed to get bigger projects which are not coming. So the first thing we realized was, yes, even if we get a small project outside India, in dollar terms, it would still pay back. Those days it used to be 35, 40 rupees a dollar. So even dollar for dollar, you were at least getting 25, 30 times more than what you were. So we started kind of not really looking, but we were open to the idea that yes, but those days we didn't have internet, no Google to search, things like that. So word of mouth, we start kind of spreading around people whom we knew in the industry, or some of the railway officials that actually worked overseas on some assignments or the other. So we started talking to them. I would say it's more luck rather than proper design. Around 97, 98, we suddenly got fax those days. Yes, fax used to work. We received a fax from somebody in Singapore saying that, because Singapore was developing their first metro then. The second technically, because the first metro was built about 30 years earlier, then they stopped building the metro. So this, in that sense, was the very first metro. And there was this gentleman who said that, yes, we got the contract and we really don't know anything having got the contract. So since India is a railway country and you people are doing something in the railways, we've heard about your name, so can we talk about it or something? So we didn't know what the opportunity was, but then we were happy that at least, yes, somebody outside of India was talking to us. Nice. So we spoke, and the contractor, of course, it all started off with, they wanted to kind of look at, getting some equipment from India rather than actually engineering. But then we said, okay, we'll help you source equipment for your construction. So we identified vendors for them, helped them place orders and things like that. And then it grew from there. So when they realized that, yes, we knew exactly, because certain times they didn't know what was the equipment they needed. They only knew what was the activity to be done. And they could show photographs, but they didn't know the name of that equipment. So we helped them with those kind of things. Then they got the confidence. So we started getting into it. And then one of those days, yes, they said, can you come over? Then traveling overseas, again, we didn't have the kind of money to risk. So we said, we are not even sure whether after going there we'll get a job or not. So somehow we kind of, over discussions, we got a feeling that, yes, there is something available. How much we didn't know, but at least worst cases, at least it would take care of my fare of going there and coming back. I also had a close friend of mine who was staying in Singapore, so I said, okay, staying is not a problem. All I need to do is fund my ticket going there. Yes.
Yeah.
So I took that chance. And while we were there, I still remember on our first meeting with the team of the contractors, he came up with the project manager came up with a particular problem that, we have this construction problem and we need some vehicles to run on the track, temporary track, but then they should be able to carry so much of load and we don't know how to do it because it's all confined space in the tunnel. So I knew, which I told you earlier, Mr. Shankar Narayan was a great designer. So I had confidence that if I'm able to explain the problem to him, he would be able to give me some solution. So I requested him. I said, can I think about it and come back to you next day? He says, fine. So I still remember quickly I made some notes and put some expected figure, meaning what kind of an equipment he had in mind, and faxed it to Mr. Shankar Narayan. And I think, poor chap, he must have worked overnight. The next day morning, before I could get up, which was much earlier here, because Singapore is about 2 hours ahead. So 7 o'clock or something, because he knew I was to go for a meeting at 9. He faxed back to me that this is the equipment I think they will need. Can you show this to them? And literally, rightly so, when I went back, that project manager was delighted. He said, yes, this is exactly what I was looking for. Because I had worked on a similar, somewhere in Europe I had worked and they had a similar equipment. I didn't even know the name, but I was too junior to even find out what it was. So this is exactly what we were. So that is where we became designers for that particular thing. So that was our first
international project.
Exactly.
And it was successful.
Yeah, and it grew. So apart from design, we just didn't do design because then they said, who will manufacture it for us? Because if you give us the design, I don't even know where it will get manufactured. Okay. And Singapore is no place to get it manufactured because it's too expensive. So then we had to locate a manufacturer in India, and specifically in Hyderabad, so that we wouldn't waste time in coordinating that thing. So fortunately,
you found somebody
yes.
in Hyderabad.
So fortunately there was a small unit which was set up, which was doing some fabrication and some other heavy equipment and all. So they had the confidence, and Mr. Shankar Narayan had been advising them earlier for some time. So they had the confidence. They said, yes, if you are willing to guide us, we will manufacture it for you. So eventually we not just became the designers, but we also managed the entire project, managed the entire process. Though manufacturing was given to them, but then we had to supervise. We had to check for quality. We had to get it tested here, certify it, and then send back. So that was a big,
So what was the time period when this?
What started off as a maybe 1 or 2 months project ended up almost 1.5 years. I still remember the end of the project was the so-called dreaded Y2K. Because 1999,
okay.
and everybody was not sure as to what would happen in January. So the manufacturers had to dispatch their product before 31st December 1999 because they didn't even know whether the ships would sail. All the the electronics would go away. Nobody wanted to take a risk. So the deadline was that before 1999, 31st December, we had to dispatch. So those guys worked overnight. They did that, and successfully we were able to dispatch it before the end of that thing. And from there, of course, then, like I said, we got entrenched into Singapore Metro. We got, I think, almost for 3 other projects, we got work from them. And that also gave us a lot of confidence that
you can handle such
things. And outside is no different. Engineers are no different. No different in Singapore, because there we interacted with Japanese, Chinese, Europeans, that is basically British. We interacted with them and we realized that the so-called exposure or the knowledge sometimes, in fact, was better with us because they were more kind of limited, focused in a particular area. Yes, their documentation was very good, but then we realized on a one-to-one basis, we could handle that. So that was really a big, more than the commercial part. Yes, commercially it was very good for us because I think suddenly in one particular year, we did almost 3 years of turnover thanks to that dollar conversion. Yeah. But then it also became a good confidence booster for us. And from there, we started kind of looking around. So again, that product which we did was an innovation because nobody had manufactured it in India itself. So right from design, we never let it kind of put us down that area. We've not done this before, so how do we do it? No, we took it as a challenge. That our job as consultants or as designers is to provide solution. So does not mean that if it's not done before, it can't be done. So as long as we understand the problem, we would be able to come up with solutions. So that was truly proven there. They just had a problem.
So it's even more challenging if it hasn't been done before.
Yes.
So you have to really apply your brain.
Absolutely, yes. That is where those applied science comes in.
Yeah.
It's not theoretical because then you have to put all your brains behind it, whether it will work or not, and also convince the other person. See, One is yourself getting convinced that this will work, but also convince the other person with all these so-called calculations, or have it tested, proven that this will work, because this is also in a tunnel. So it's much more critical, and it's people moving and things like that. So we had to do all those things. We had to get it certified by, the engineering college certified the designs and all those things. But then we had to give proof of calculations, everything, all that. So that was a good learning. But like I said, more than anything else, it gave us a lot of confidence. That was our big takeaway from that. That, we actually got confident that we could look outside India in a kind of broader way now, though it was Singapore only. But we realized that. And same thing we could also replicate in India, that, we don't need to do conventional projects in India. Let us now start looking for problems where we can come up with solutions. So that was something.
It's very nice, and to be successful in your first international project is very nice. Yeah. So I want to know any failure, because failure teaches us much more than success.
And around that time, in fact, this was before the success came in. Big problem that one of we, like I told you earlier, we used to do a lot of track maintenance activity. That was our biggest money, because that was the only way we could get some money. So one of our government clients said that, no, we don't want you to just do the maintenance. We want you to do complete rehabilitation of a particular section then, which those days was a big amount, because
where
in India itself. In India itself, yeah, one of the government
South
clients.
India?
That was Central India, basically. So they had confidence, because we've been maintaining their railway system for almost 3-4 years, and they had great confidence. So they said, no, we don't want to appoint another contractor. You can appoint it, but we want you to kind of take it up as a EPC kind of concept, which we don't even understand. So that is where we happily took it without realizing the implications. And when we started, after signing the job, we realized that we needed at least 5 or 6 lakh rupees as working capital, which was almost half a year of turnover. So that is when we realized that we hardly had 50,000 in our bank. And how could we actually buy equipment or buy material worth kind of 5 or 6 lakh rupees? Because everybody, since we were a nobody, so nobody was willing to give us credit. Nobody was, willing to talk to us without money. And taking the job, we got stuck. We couldn't even refuse after signing the contract. So that was a big challenge. I started running around banks, around everything. So we were able to kind of convince one of the vendors, which is, railway rehabilitation, those sleepers which you see are the most expensive component. Rails, of course, normally the clients provide, because it's brought in from the government. SAIL used to supply rails. So but the sleepers were the most expensive part. So we were able to convince one of the manufacturers that, okay, we'll pay by rotation. So as much as we pick is what we'll pay, but the total order is kind of, X numbers or whatever. But we could only pay for some 10% of that at any given time. And he would always replenish us and give us maybe 30 days credit till we got our payment. Only the first time we had to pay him. He got convinced with that, and we are also able to then convince Andhra Bank, I still remember, to open a letter of credit for us. Those days, princely amount of, I think, 2.5 lakh rupees or something, to give that comfort to that vendor. So that was there, and those days, again, no mobiles, nothing. And this was a remote Central India, remote corner, which, the site was from the nearest town was maybe 15 kilometers away. So no mobile phone. But you had to still monitor. So the guy from the field there would call up suddenly in the middle of the night that tomorrow there's material is not coming and things, and what do I answer the client? So those were great, again, both learning and also gave us confidence that if you kind of have the will, if you, have the kind of vision, you're able to overcome obstacles. So like I said, we were able to convince the vendor to give us. So that also taught us the value of ethics, because that is where the vendor also realized, because he had heard a bit about people behind the company. He said, yes, these people can't defraud me. Kind of, because eventually we became good friends. So that's when he told me all this, that yes, when I got to know about the company, I said, yeah, it's worth a risk for me, because chances are that, yes, I'll get money and I'll get more business.
So this prepared you for future projects, this experience?
First thing it taught me how to manage money. Because I'm always poor in finance planning. So that taught me that, yes, you can't jump into it and then start looking for money. So then I realized that, yes, I need to sit and understand finances first. That is more important. So that is what I did, that yes, any project then, that yes, first I need to plan out what kind of money I will need before starting this project, and then what are the pitfalls that, again, chances are the client would say that 30 days, but you might get might not get money for 60 days. So what do you do for those 30 days? It can't be always hand-to-mouth kind of thing. Correct. So that, to me, taught a lot of lessons in terms of how to plan a project, how to take care of all uncertainties, and how to plan your finances. So that was a good learning.
So it's not just design and execution,
absolutely,
but the money in hand.
Yes. So because today, for example, we take even pure design projects also require a lot of people to be mobilized, a lot of team. So finance is an equally important part, because you will need to pay them on time, salaries, correct, whether the client pays you or not. And client might, with all good intention, might have that okay, 30 days I'll pay you. But then if he doesn't, you can't say refuse your. So financial planning is a big element of good project planning. So that is one lesson I learned, that yes, just because we don't have manufacturing or we don't have raw material, we can't ignore the financial planning part of it. So that is definitely.
So when you quote for a project, so you have to take all these aspects.
Oh yes, exactly. Like any other industry, we also have our cash flows planned. We do everything and each project has to have an independent planning, because we can't have a good project suffering, taking out money from here and putting into another project, because then both are suffering.
And you have to plan for delays sometimes.
Exactly. It happens.
Natural disasters, yes, something beyond your control.
True. It could happen suddenly, like COVID happened. Suddenly nobody expected. Correct. And we had, during COVID time, we had people at site. Now, they were stuck there, and it's our job to ensure that they get paid. So it was pure, again, fortunate and good support from our clients, frankly. Most of them government clients. They actually paid us much better, much prompter than in normal times, because they also realized some of the clients actually released amount in advance to cater for, yes. And these are government clients, mind you. But then despite that, they actually helped us. They said, yes, your people are stuck there, so this is your initial amount. We will adjust it during your future course of work. So that actually helped us a lot. So COVID also taught us a lot of lessons.
From the early days onwards.
Exactly. Like I said, so fortunately, like I said, innovation has always been in our thing. So we looked at every problem not as something to get really worried about. Yes, concerns are there, but always at least we had the confidence that if we think about it, if we put our heads together, we will be able to come up with an innovative solution. So that is, and that's how, like I said, we started with the small things which I told you, that small computer, small things, so those kind of differentiations we started getting in, and that became bigger and bigger. So wherever big thinking was required, we said, yes, we will kind of do it. So in fact, for example, during NTR's time, if you remember, he had this vision of the original Hyderabad metro, which he used to call it the Hyderabad LRT, right? Yes. And his vision was that he'll run the train on Tank Bund. Yes. So in that grand project, surprisingly, I think Sheila Dikshit was the Minister of Urban Development. Yeah. She took up that as a great project, first time in India after Delhi Metro, and they advertised for a global tender to come and bid for that project. Now, again, like I said, we said being in Hyderabad, we are we are non-entities, but how can we not be a part of that project? But we were like a small fly compared to an elephant of that project, because those days that project was costed about.
But that also gives you a lot of freedom to try something. You don't have any
nothing to lose. Exactly, nothing to lose. So that is what we thought, that being in Hyderabad is our plus point. So whoever wants to bid for that job, they would definitely look for somebody here. But then we realized that nobody was even looking at that job because it was the first one of its kind. So nobody was looking. So now the challenge became, how do we interest somebody to look at this job? That it was something good, something big, and that kind of thing. So again, like I said, innovation, yes. I took a chance. I said, who are the big guys in this industry who normally build such projects? So the earlier General Electric, GE, they had a very strong railway division, and they would take up turnkey projects globally. So I said, okay, those are the right guys to talk to, but they were sitting in Paris and London, not in India. So how do we talk to? I don't even know whom to contact, and again, like I said, no emails, nothing. I had a friend of mine in London who said, okay, let me do some, help around. He located, he said, yes, their international business office is in London, and he was able to identify a name, though nobody knew about or had any contact. He said, maybe yes, if you are here, I can fix up time for you. Again, the issue became 35,000 or whatever, I still remember. I think it was that much to go to London. How do we fund it? Or whether it is worth funding it or not. My friend came to rescue again. He said,
Okay.
yes, I am here, so my house is taken care. All you need to do is just fund for it. I hunted around all the airlines. That was the time Emirates had just started.
Okay.
I must have been one of their earlier travelers. Because Dubai airport, they didn't have anything but a small Begumpet airport kind terminal and only buses moving around and sand all over.
My God.
So they were offering a return fare at about 21,000. So I said, yes, nobody's tried that, but that's the cheapest. So let me take that.
Okay.
No regrets after that, of course. But then that's how. So 25,000 is what I kept for myself. That okay, some exchange, some pounds I will need to do, at least local travel there. My original plan was to be there for about 3-4 days. Maybe I'll be able to die. Of course, eventually I landed up almost 3 weeks I was staying there, because while we were able to catch up with this guy, he also said that, what is this company? 10-member company. What do you do? Kind of thing. So we had to convince him that we are in Hyderabad and we know Hyderabad like back of our hand, and even if you bid, you won't be able to do anything. You can't operate there or you can't do anything. Finally, he was convinced, but then he said I had to take approval from my boss in Paris. So he said, yes, I'll wait for you. So that's how I ended up waiting almost 3-4 weeks almost. I said, I still remember the name of the gentleman. It was Peter Rigby. I said, Peter, I'm not leaving this place till I get a letter from you.
Oh.
That both of us are bidding for this job. So every day I would land up in his office.
Okay.
Yes, so much so that his secretary, the lady also was kind enough. The moment I would go, she said, no, Peter is not here in office, but please have a coffee and go.
Very persistent.
That's so every day me and my friend would land up in the office, almost 2-3 weeks continuously. Finally, he was convinced. The day I didn't decide when I would, because those days you used to have that open ticket concept. Okay. So my dates were, so one fine day he said, yes, I've got approval from my bosses. I will issue this letter, whatever those days was worded, that yes, we are willing to put effort into bidding for this or some such thing. And he also gave me all his brochures and all. He said, now carry it and submit it. So that came here and landed in Delhi, submitted that, realized that we were the only ones who had put in interest. so again, that again gave us the confidence that irrespective of the size, because for GE, which was a multi-billion-dollar company, 5 lakh or 10 lakh kind of a company had no meaning.
Peanuts,
They didn't even need to talk to me. But then that also, personally to me and to all of us, it gave that confidence that if we have the right element of value which we can bring into a project, then however big a organization or however big a person, they would look at you seriously. Because if you're able to bring that value into a project, because they also looked at it as, yes, Hyderabad, and we had done some work earlier on the project itself, some engineering and all that thing. So they realized that, yes, we knew the project.
They can see the bigger picture.
Exactly, which we were kind of too scared to even think of.
Yeah.
So that is where we realized that, yes, since then and always, we always look at what value we can bring in. So we normally, again, don't look at going into a business just because I want to do that business or, that project. No, it's always that if I can bring in value to that project, then we go ahead. Then the size of the project doesn't matter, big or small, but we are valued so that our partner also values us. He doesn't look at us as somebody who's just an add-on kind of person.
Correct.
So that is something which we are very particular about, that yes, whatever we do in a project, how much ever insignificant a role we play, but we need to bring value, which if not during the project, end of the project, the partner and all the stakeholders should realize that we brought in that value. So that is something which has always been there. So innovation again.
So what happened?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So early days, like I said, we would look around for any and every opportunity. So while I was in London, one of these days, somebody introduced me to one of the bankers. He used to work for one of the German banks and all. He said, Sunil, you're from India. Are you in Delhi? I said, no, I'm not in Delhi, but I'm from Hyderabad. Tell me what you want. He says, no, it's a small job. Would you be interested? I said, it doesn't matter. If it's to do with my value, my domain, I'm okay with that. So very hesitating, where he said, no, I need one small due diligence to be done on the Delhi Metro project, because we were planning to fund it. So can you, get this kind of, they had a standard 25-page kind of questionnaire. Can you have this filled up for me? I said, yes. I was so excited that something new was coming. So I didn't even ask him what was his kind of budget or what. I said, yes, we'll do it. Yes, just took it on. I said, yes, we'll do it. I came back and he said, yes, we have about 4 weeks time. And then it struck me that, okay, I've taken the job. I don't even have a formal purchase order, so I don't even know the value. Then I called up on ISD. I said, I don't remember the name of the gentleman. I said, can you send me a formal letter So he hesitantly said, but you see, I only have some, I think $5,000 pounds or something as a budget. I was very happy. I said, okay, 5,000 pounds is big, 5 lakhs or whatever it was kind of thing. So I said, yes, please send it to me. So that is where, so then we ended up, yes, we in fact, the current PRO in Delhi Metro, the head of public relations, Anuj Dayal, he helped us a lot in getting that information put together. And we were able to do it in about 4 weeks. So innovation to us has always been not looking at what we have done, but more what we can do with our knowledge. I always tell people that our strength is our knowledge of railway technology. Now, that is what we need to put to use. So it could be like same due diligence, because we understand the system, we were able to answer those questions very easily. So anywhere where our knowledge of railways can be used, be it in proper design engineering or be it in writing a thesis on railways or wherever it is. That is our skill, and we've always been looking at
So you're not intimidated by very big projects. You don't look at small projects as worthless.
Yes.
You take each project
absolutely. Yeah.
as
For us, like you rightly said, today I think yes, even a $2-3 billion project doesn't matter. In fact, Hyderabad Metro was $3 billion. We handled it very effectively. In fact, everybody, all the stakeholders still respect us for that. So that is something, I think, that initial grinding, that initial confidence is what gave us that size today doesn't matter, neither small or big. Today we take sometimes as small a project as maybe 2 or 5 lakhs, but then we find that if it's something interesting, which we will also learn, or we will actually be able to draw from that and make it bigger subsequently. So we do that. Sometimes, in fact, there are issues, the times where we actually put in our service more as gratis or cost literally and say, okay, just pay for travel. Because we find that maybe in that project we'll be actually able to learn much more than what we would otherwise have to pay for. So size has never been a constraint for us. So like when sometimes customers ask us that, or rather me, earlier when I used to be in full-time business development, a lot of time people would ask me, Sunil, what is the size or what will it take you to take a project? I said, I need 2 things. I said, I need a airport for me to come to your place and I need railways to be there. That's all. The moment these 2 are there, I'm happy to work.
Then you're on the right track.
Yes, I'm on the right track because I need to come to meet you. So I need an airport if I need to travel outside the country. Right. And there has to be a railway there. So that is, so today, like I said, yes, we've done same Hyderabad Metro, Chennai Metro, which we are doing is I think close to phase 1 and phase 2 is close to about 45,000 crores today or maybe more. So size today, we've handled, like I said, from one-man projects to 150 people in the project. We are able to recruit, we are able to deliver.
So it's an interesting attitude, not to feel overwhelmed or underwhelmed.
Yeah. See, actually overwhelmed is more, I think, a self kind of complex we have, especially not just Indians, most of the Southeast Asian and Asians have that complex because I think more to do with
doubt ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. We always have that confidence, and am I good enough? So that I think I was able to overcome because of my frequent travel to the Western world, interacting with people on a regular basis. I was able to see that they are nothing great compared to what we are in terms of skill. Yes, maybe some of them might have better language skills, nothing more. In fact, a lot of times people actually in England used to compliment me for my English. They would say that my English is better than their English. So, so that is where we realized, and that's how I used to encourage a lot of our youngsters also to go out and travel. Or when overseas visitors come to office, I encourage the youngsters to talk to them because they will get confidence then. They realize that, okay, that guy is as good an engineer as I am. Or sometimes maybe not. So that, like I said, over these
So when you haven't traveled, when you're within India, you think that people outside are great experts and we don't know much.
True. So that is something, again, like I said, is more self-created. Because you've not interacted, so you have it in your mind. Since he's from the Western world, automatically
he or she very good.
He has to be or she has to be very good. Like I admit, yes, they're very good in documentation. So yes, they're able to read out and spell out everything, whereas most of us are by memory. So that is where we lag, which is what even today I emphasize that we need to improve our documentation. So that is how we'll be able to project ourselves better. So what I notice when we work with even large partners, international partners, we find that the kind of jobs, some of the jobs which they have done are maybe 1/10 the size of project which you've done. But they write big stories about that, or they're able to project that very well.
The communication is better?
Yes, communication.
Communicating what they've done.
Communicating what they've done is better, not
Yeah.
necessarily
Correct.
overall language, but then, so in your term, media term, it would be the PR is better.
Correct.
They're able to portray their activities better, and also because they're organized in a nice documentation.
Just like they do with their tourism projects.
Absolutely. Exactly the same, and that's, I think, their way of life. And that's how they're quite trained. Also, they're very well trained in documenting. Because simple thing like, initially I used to find it odd that when I went for a meeting, though yes, since I was traveling from here, I would actually have a big bag or something, but nobody on the table would come without a notebook. Whether they were writing or not, but invariably the junior to the senior most person would come and open the notebook and then start discussion. That means
So always writing down
yes,
what you want.
exactly. So it starts from there. That concept of noting down starts from there. So that is something. So these are some of the innovations, which we're trying to get from there, trying to learn, trying to put it into our vibe. So initial days, these were the learnings which we had, which
so
is kind of
noting down of points before discussion. So it tells you that you don't miss the finer points.
exact. Yeah, exact. That's the reason.
When
So
you
that
come back from a meeting and realize you should have discussed it.
and also your meeting is very precise. You don't waste time and thinking because you have a pre-planned agenda. So these points I have to tick, and then so this is something which we are there, but we need to still improve. As not only us, but majority of us are improving now. So that is something which is definitely there. So early days, like I said, these were the things which made us, learning. And most of the time, I was the one who was learning these things. So I would get them, teach people, train them onto these things, and that is what has kept us in these early days. The struggles and these learnings. More than like I said, that's why I never looked at anything as a struggle. Even going to a new country,
But you didn't have an aborted project. You didn't start something and leave it midway.
From our side, it's always been committed that even if we are losing money, that's one of the fundamental things which the founders have told us, that don't look for money, you complete the job. You get the money later, fair enough, but otherwise as a professional, don't leave anything incomplete. So from our side, we've never left a job, even if we've not got paid or even if there's been delayed payments.
But from the other side?
There have been missed payments. We have a lot of bad debts, or used to rather. We become choosy. We would like I said, we've learned from there. So like how they do a check on our capability, we also do a check on their financial ability. A lot of, I wouldn't like to name them, but a lot of big corporates in India are technically blacklisted in our firm. We don't bid for them.
Okay.
Yeah. So they are shocked.
Once bitten, twice shy.
Exactly. So they are shocked. Sometimes they call us up because they know we know each other. They call up, your guys are not bidding. I say, I'm sorry, both of us can be friends, but no, we are not allowed to bid to your organization. So that's where we've learned, I think. Not arrogant, but I think that has helped us in also maintaining our
No, you
financial
don't want
strength.
to go through the same path.
Exactly. Having gone through, and when you're smaller, it is easier to manage those financial problems. As you grow, you're now today responsible for 350 people, 400 people. I can't afford to put them down for my stupid risk kind of thing. So
Correct.
These are the learnings which over this period. It's been nice. Yes, we've learned, grown, picked up, like I said, good projects, challenging projects, both big, small, everything. And yes, I think that is what has kept us going so far, 30, 40 years.
From what you said so far, I gather that self-confidence is an important, persistence, self-confidence.
Oh yes, definitely.
And passion, of course.
Passion, I think, is the biggest thing because I was never a great engineer, frankly. Nothing great in college and not even very fond of engineering. But yes, once I got into the railway industry, I was definitely passionate about it and I wanted to make it happen. So that is something which even today I'm very passionate about because I still feel that there's a lot more to grow. So that is something which we've not done enough. We still need to kind of grow there. So passion, I think, is always in any profession, not just anybody who wants to be successful in life. As youngsters, their chosen field, they definitely need to be passionate. Otherwise, it will be run of the mill. They'll do a job, they'll get promotions, but then that satisfaction will not be there. Yes, they might get bigger salary raises and things like that. Professionally, they will not be able to get that satisfaction or leave a legacy kind of behind. So that is one thing which, again, like the founders were very clear that we want to leave a legacy behind. So
we just don't want to do something for
they didn't do it as a business.
Profits and
no, they never looked at it as a business. They said whatever institution we create should be there as a brand, as a name, which people should remember. Not individuals. They were not particular about individuals being remembered. It is the brand. So today also a lot of times...
They've built something bigger than that.
Absolutely, yeah. So today also a lot of times, a lot of people don't even know me, but they know the brand, which I'm very happy.
Correct.
So when I have been introduced, they say, oh, you're the guy behind this company, which we are very happy with, because we want the institution to be bigger than the individuals there. And hopefully, yes, we are, we are reaching there. I wouldn't say we've reached there, but yes, we are reaching there.
So it's very interesting. You told us about a lot of people you've taken, the foot soldiers. So I think I want to know about the generals that you took into your team and who are perhaps still with you. So I think we will discuss that.
Yes,
in
about
the next
the generals
episode.
we'll discuss on the next
episode.
episode. Yes,
because
absolutely.
for now we've learned some beautiful things. I think which is applicable to everybody. To all your employees, I think how they should go about the confidence that they need, the passion, the need for innovation, inclination to do work, and imagination. So everything together. I think there's a lot that we've taken from this episode. So for the next episode, I think we have a lot more to discuss about the people who have stayed with you, the generals.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So the first question is, any setbacks faced in international or domestic works that taught you the lesson for life or change your approach towards the business?
Okay, now certainly I remember. We have taken up a project of all places in Syria.
Okay.
Yes, we got a project in Syria along with a Australian partner, because the Australian partner was keen on bidding and we were closer in terms of cultural thing. So we bid for a project in Syria. After kind of starting off the project, we realized that it was actually the Syria-Iraq border where the project was.
Okay.
The line was actually getting into Iraq. It was. These were, of course, in hindsight, we learned that was the main petroleum line where the petrol tanks were feeding Iraq.
Oh, okay.
So that was the line which the government wanted operational, so that they could pump in, or rather send the petrol trains into Iraq.
Okay.
So that was one of the biggest challenge that our guys went there. First challenge happened that I still remember one of the engineers got stuck in Santa Cruz airport because there was some problem with his visa, so he was sent back. He could never go back again. So the problem started from day one. And then when our team landed there, it was some -14 or something, which they were not prepared for. So these homework, because these were raw, we never knew how to work on international, what kind of preparation to do. So that was a big kind of learning. Setback, yes, eventually, because I think the war broke out, we never even got paid. Fortunately, our initial advance was large enough to take care of our costs for both for us and the international partner. So we never lost money in that sense, but we didn't get paid for completing the job. So that was a big setback, also a good learning. So we became more cautious in terms of identifying geographies. So we do today political
I was about
analysis.
To study the political situation.
We do the political situation. We consult the Indian embassies in those countries in terms of safe regulations. So today, like I said, yes, whichever country we work in, the first thing any of us do is meet the High Commissioner or the ambassador there, tell them what we are doing and seek advice from them.
See that you're not stuck in war
yes.
zones.
So and I should say that they are also been very helpful. And past 15 years, we've never had any issue with the Indian embassies. They've been very, very useful. So that was a big setback and a learning for us.
Okay. Good life learning.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah.
That completely answers the question. There's another question by Ravi sir.
Mm-hmm.
And he's asking, how do you want Barsylians to evolve and cultivate that innovative spirit?
See, frankly, it's very difficult for every Barsylian to meet my expectation. I mean, very frank, because I don't expect everybody to be as committed as I am. But natural. See, I have different motivation. I have a different kind of requirement. I have, more than anything, I have passion for railways. Now, at least. So that is something. But yes, I would be very happy, not just as Barsylians, because like I told, any profession, if they are committed. So as long as they are in BARSYL, they should be committed to railway or for BARSYL. And do it out of passion and not as a necessity, not compulsion. Whatever work they take, whatever role they are doing, either same, to answer you whether you are in business development or whether you are in engineering or whether you are in corporate communication. Do the best as a professional which you can deliver. Take pride in your work, and something which you leave behind you should not be ashamed of admitting that I did this job. That is what I tell everybody. That even if you are typing a letter, tomorrow you should not feel, oh my God, is this the letter I typed? Or is this the mail I sent? No. Smallest thing like that. So each of them, if they actually do that as a professional, if they take pride in what is leaving their table, they will automatically come to my expectations. Mm-hmm. That's it.
That's awesome.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There, I think 2 good questions have come
yes,
out.
Very nice questions.
So nice questions,
absolutely.
And it shows that everybody is following the conversation too.
True.
So we'll end this discussion till we meet next time.
Thank you, Aruna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.